Moonlight promise. Xiao San and Wang, Yibo spotted sharing a private boat ride. At midnight. For weeks, fans had been reeling from Xiao's earth-shattering confession. The precise day he fell in love with Wang Yibo. It was rain. It was silence. It was everything. But just when the world thought it couldn't get any more romantic, reality turned into poetry. Last night, under a velvet sky, scattered with stars, Xiao San and Wang Yi were spotted together on a private boat, drifting across a moonlit lake at midnight. No bodyguards, no cameras, no crowds, just them, the water, and a promise that seemed written in the glow of the moon itself. The scene was so breathtaking, so cinematic that those lucky enough to witness it claimed it didn't feel real. It felt like stepping into the very pages of a love story the world had waited years to read. A night that changed everything. It began quietly. A few fans in Hunga noticed something unusual. Xiao leaving a restaurant near the West Lake just before midnight, his hood drawn low. Minutes later, Wang Yibo appeared, equally disguised, slipping through the back entrance with the ease of someone who had done it before. Something in my chest told me this wasn't coincidence, said one fan who trailed behind at a respectful distance. I knew we were about to see something unforgettable. Her instinct was right. On the dock, a small wooden boat waited, the kind made for two people, not groups. And when Xiaoan and Wangor stepped onto it together, something shifted in the air. They weren't actors anymore, the fan whispered through tears. They were just two souls escaping the world, the moon. As witness, the boatman later confirmed that the ride lasted just over an hour. No words of conversation were overheard. But what unfolded was far louder than speech. Wang Yibo sat at the front, his hand trailing lightly in the water as Xiaoan leaned against the wooden edge. His face turned toward the silvered reflection of the moon. At one point, Xiaoan lifted his head, and their eyes met across the dim glow of lantern light. The silence between them stretched into eternity. No one watching needed words. The gaze said it all. This is us. This is home. The boat rocked gently, carrying them into deeper waters, where city lights faded and only stars remained. The sight was hauntingly beautiful, the kind of moment that could make even the hardest heart believe in destiny, a gesture that broke fans. But what truly shattered hearts across the world was the moment Wang Yibo reached into his jacket and pulled something small from his pocket. Witnesses claim it was a folded piece of paper. He passed it to Xiao San, whose hands trembled as he opened it under the lantern's glow. Though no one could see the writing, Xiao San's reaction was undeniable. His lips parted, his eyes glistened, and he pressed the note to his chest before reaching across the boat to clasp Wang's hand. The boatman swore he saw tears in Xiao's eyes. And when Wang Yibo leaned forward, brushing his thumb gently across Xiaoan's knuckles, the entire lake seemed to hold its breath. The promise. So, what was on that note? Hours later, an anonymous insider leaked that it contained a single line written in Wang Yi's unmistakable handwriting. No matter where the water takes us, I'll always be beside you. It wasn't just a romantic line. It was a vow, a moonlight promise from a man who rarely used words, but when he did, meant every syllable. And for Xiao San, who had once described Wang Yibo as the one who makes the storm in me quiet, those words carried the weight of eternity. Fans react. The news spread like wildfire. Clips of the two on the boat, grainy but undeniable, hit social media within hours. Fans around the world fell into emotional chaos. One fan tweeted, "We witnessed the public kiss. We heard our beginning, but this is poetry. Alive. This is the love story of the century." Another wrote, "They don't need red carpets. They don't need grand weddings. They have the moon, the water, and each other. That's love." Even skeptics, long critical of their bond, found themselves silenced by the sheer sincerity of the scene. Industry reactions. While fans wept and celebrated, the entertainment industry shivered. Executives whispered about uncontrolled narratives. Sponsors worried about conservative backlash. And rival studios fretted over the unstoppable power of their love story. Yet, in the midst of industry panic, something extraordinary happened. Sales for Xiao and Wang Yi's past dramas skyrocketed overnight. Music streams doubled. Brands once hesitant began quietly shifting their stance, realizing that fighting against the tide of this love would only drown them. Love had become not just personal, but powerful. The poetry of it all. What makes the midnight boat ride unforgettable is not just the romance. It is how perfectly it rhymes with everything that came before. The rain. Xiao fell in love with Wang. Yibo standing in a storm. The kiss. They shocked the world when their love broke through silence. The confession. Zhan revealed the moment his heart was claimed. And now the boat. A moonlit promise that sealed everything with eternity. Every chapter a line like verses in a poem, each scene flowing into the next. The morning after. By dawn, Xiao and Wang Yibo had vanished. The boat returned empty, drifting softly to the dock as though carrying the memory of their promise. But fans swear they saw something more. One claimed she spotted them walking hand in hand along the misty lake's edge before slipping into a waiting car. Another insisted she saw Xiao resting his head briefly on Wang's shoulder, a gesture so intimate it felt like trespassing to witness. What's certain is this: they emerged from that night different, stronger, braver, unbreakable. Why? It matters. For years, the question has never been if Xiao and Wang Yibo loved each other, but how much. And with every revelation, the answer grows louder. This boat ride wasn't staged. It wasn't a performance. It was raw, real, and impossibly tender. And for a pair who have weathered psychiatric wards, family rejections, industry wars, and public scandals, to see them drifting across moonlit waters together feels like the universe finally giving them peace. The lasting image. Close your eyes and imagine it. Two men, no disguises, no walls. A wooden boat, drifting under the moon. One reaching out a hand, the other holding it tight. A promise written in ink, sealed in silence, carried by the water into forever. It is not just a love story. It is the love story. And for those who witnessed it, one truth is certain. The world may forget many things, but it will never forget the night Xiao and Wang Yibo carved their love into the surface of the lake itself. Moonlight. Promise. The night that stopped time. The images were fleeting. A boat, two figures, the glow of a lantern on black water. But what the public didn't see, what the cameras couldn't capture, was how alive that night truly was. The moonlight boat ride wasn't just a stolen evening. It was an unraveling of walls. A chapter that burned itself into eternity. The gentle beginning. The boat creaked as it pushed away from the dock, the water lapping softly against its sides. Lanterns swayed, their dim flames painting streaks of gold on the surface of the lake. Xiao sat rigid at first, shoulders drawn tight, eyes scanning the shoreline as though someone might leap from the shadows to tear this moment apart. But Wang, ever calm, ever steady, simply leaned back, one arm draped casually over the edge of the wooden boat. You holding your breath, Wang Yibo said softly without even looking at him. Zhan blinked, startled. I am not. You are, Wang Yibo repeated, his lips curving into the faintest smile. Breathe. No one can reach us here. And with those words, the lake swallowed their fears. The unseen touch. The boat rocked gently, the sound of oars dipping into the water, echoing like a heartbeat. In the middle of the wooden bench lay the tiniest gap, a strip of cool wood separating their hands. Xiao's fingers tapped against it nervously, once, twice, a rhythm born from nerves he couldn't still. Then, slowly, Wangebor's hand slid closer. He didn't grab, didn't force. He merely allowed his little finger to graze Xiao's. That single brush of skin was more electric than any embrace. Xiao's chest tightened, his throat burned, but he didn't pull away. Instead, his hand turned, palm open, silently inviting, and Wangebor's fingers slipped into his with the ease of someone who had been waiting a lifetime. The reflection in the water, a sudden gust stirred the lantern flame, and their shadows merged on the surface of the lake. The reflection was blurry, distorted by ripples, but it looked like one silhouette. Two figures melted into a single shape. Xiao noticed first. He pointed with a quiet laugh, his voice hushed as if afraid to disturb the night. Look, even the water thinks we're the same person. Wang Yibo followed his gaze, then smirked. Maybe it knows something you're too stubborn to admit. Xiao San's cheeks flushed. He looked away, but not fast enough to hide the smile tugging at his lips. The hidden note from the pocket of his jacket. Wang Yi pulled out a folded piece of paper. He turned it over in his fingers a few times, hesitation flickering in his eyes before finally pressing it into Xiao's hand. Don't read it now, he said firmly, but Xiao, too curious, unfolded it under the lantern's glow. Anyway, the words were written in Ibor's tight, careful handwriting. No matter where the water takes us, I'll always be beside you. Beneath it, almost like a secret, smaller words were scrolled. This is what I should have told you long ago. Xiao San's throat closed. He pressed the paper to his chest and whispered, "You've been carrying this for weeks." Wang Yibo admitted, "Waiting for a night like this." The song of memory. The boat drifted deeper into the lake where the air grew stiller. The world hushed. Xiao Jin, his emotions brimming, began to hum a tune, barely audible, no words, just a soft thread of sound carried on the breeze. Wang Yibo stilled, recognizing it instantly. It was a melody they had once created together in a rehearsal room long ago, a song no one else had ever heard. You remember? Wang Yibo whispered. How could I forget? Xiao replied, his voice cracking with the weight of memory. The notes dissolved into the night, unfinished, but the silence that followed was louder than music. The lantern wish. The boatman, silent until then, handed them a small paper lantern. Tradition, a chance to make a wish and set it afloat. Xiao San hesitated. He had never trusted wishes. They always felt fragile, easily broken. But Wang Yi lit the lantern, shielding the flame from the wind with his hand, and whispered something Xiao couldn't hear. What did you wish for? Xiao San asked quietly. Wang Yi met his gaze. Nothing. I already have it. And then he let the lantern drift across the lake. A glowing star floating away into the darkness. The silence that binds. The boat grew quiet after that. No more jokes. No more whispers. Just silence. Yet it wasn't awkward. It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of unsaid words. Of promises pressed between palms. Of breaths sinking with the rocking of the boat. They didn't need to speak. Every glance, every squeeze of fingers, every shared breath was a declaration. For a long stretch of time, they simply sat, gazing at the horizon as though the lake itself was carrying them to a world where no one could tear them apart. The boatman's memory. Years later, the old boatman told his story to a reporter. His voice trembled, eyes distant, as though replaying the moment in his mind. I've carried many across that lake, he said, but those two, they didn't need words. They looked at each other like the moon and the tide, as if one could not exist without the other. I knew then, I was rowing not just two men, but a promise. The final gesture. A